Ryan? You think we should wait for Brian or just go for it?
I think he went out to get
Mark.
You got the integration.
went to get more less dried out markers. So let's give him a minute. Oh, here he is.
Thank you. We just moved the next board up.
Sorry.
We just moved the next board. That's all right. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. So I'm going to be doing a lightning talk about a hypothetical course on experiential purchases. So welcome to this preview for a course about the market for experiences. In this course, we will explore the nature and benefits of experiential offerings and hopefully gain some insight that will help us to make more rewarding decisions as managers, consumers, and as people overall. So first, today we'll start by taking a look at this paper, this 2003 paper by Van Boven and Gilovich called To Do or To Have. That is the question. That paper raises the important distinction between experiential purchases and material purchases and compares the happiness that consumers derive from each. So that paper introduces the definitions of experiential purchases as purchases made with the primary intention of acquiring a life experience, an event or a series of events that one lives through. Conversely, they define material purchases as those made with the primary intention of acquiring a tangible object that is kept in one's possession. So they raise this distinction in response to a long tradition of notable figures and research that has been critical of the weaknesses of materialism. So in the first section of this paper called Materialism, the authors cite Aristotle, who wrote that humans erroneously fancy that external goods are the cause of happiness. They also cite Jesus Christ, who is quoted in the Gospel of Luke as saying that one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. And then they also cite more recent empirical research that found that individuals who score more highly in materialism, in a materialistic perspective, report lower levels of life satisfaction and well-being. So Van Boven and Gilovich paint a fairly bleak picture of materialism, but they offer experiential consumption as an alternative to the accumulation of material possessions. And so across 4 studies, Van Boven and Gilovich found that consumers derive greater happiness from their experiential purchases than their material purchases. So just to be clear, the conclusion of this paper is that consumers derive greater happiness from their experiential purchases rather than their material purchases. So in the general discussion of that paper, Van Boven and Gilovich offer 3 explanations for why they found the result they did. And the rest of this presentation will focus on one of these explanations. And that explanation is that experiential purchases contribute more to one's sense of identity, which leads to greater benefits in terms of the need for self-actualization. So, quickly here, the need for self-actualization. Now, to reinforce this point, Van Boven and Gilovich cite Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, which is a framework that was presented in 1943 to explain human motivation, desire, and satisfaction. So what Maslow did in this framework is he categorized all human needs into 5 basic categories. And these 5 basic and also the categories are ranked in a specific order. And these needs in order are the physiological needs. Trying to write fast, write quickly. The need for safety, the needs for love and belonging, and the need for esteem, and finally the need for self-actualization. So quickly, the definition of each of these needs is physiological needs are the needs that are required to sustain life. So food, water, air. The need for safety is the need to feel that one is safe from immediate danger. The needs for love and belonging are satisfied by both giving and receiving love and feeling like one is a part of a group or community. The need for esteem is the need to feel that one is competent, that one is valuable, and that one is appreciated. And finally, the need for self-actualization is the need to feel that one is becoming the most that he or she can be. Now, the order is important here because, for example, for any given need, for a person to shift their, for a person to be motivated by the desire to satisfy any given need, the needs that are lower on the hierarchy must first be satisfied. This makes sense if you think about a person who does not have enough air to breathe. That person may not be as focused or motivated by the desire for esteem. So that's the first aspect of the order. The second part of the order is once the needs below a given need have been satisfied, the person is primarily motivated by the desire to satisfy the current need. So for example, if we consider esteem, if a person has met their physiological needs, feels a sense of safety, feels senses of love and belonging, then that person becomes focused on the need for esteem. And the way Maslow illustrates this idea is he considers a man who is a chronically starved man, a person who never has enough to eat. This person, when this starved person considers a perfect world in which he is perfectly satisfied and happy, his main focus is that in that world he has enough to eat. But Maslow contends that if this person did in fact have enough to eat, then that person would not be perfectly satisfied or happy because that person would then be consumed, or not consumed, but preoccupied with the higher desires on this hierarchy. So, what does this conclusion mean for the market for both the markets for experiential goods, experiential offerings, and material offerings? So first, what this means is that material possessions are in fact necessary for the highest levels of satisfaction. This is because material possessions are important to satisfying the physiological needs and the need for safety. For example, one needs food to satisfy the physiological needs, and one might need shelter to satisfy the need for safety. So material possessions are very important here in the lower levels. However, once these needs have been met, material possessions alone cannot bring the highest levels of satisfaction. And that's because the needs for love, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization require meaningful experiences to be satisfied. So, for example, a chair or a shirt or a house cannot, in and of themselves, satisfy the need for love and belonging, for example. So, in a community where many people have satisfied their physiological needs and their need for safety to a certain extent, the role of experiences in achieving the higher levels of satisfaction and happiness become more important. So in this case, a person who devotes more resources to acquiring more material possessions will only reinforce the lower needs, but the lack in desire underlying the needs for love and belonging is still relatively unmet. That person can instead divert their resources from acquiring more material possessions to acquiring more meaningful experiences. And the market for experiences is a very important element in making opportunities for these meaningful experiences to occur. So that's the importance that the market for experiences plays in a community, especially a community in which many people have satisfied these two fundamental needs. So we're going to explore this market. We're going to explore these offerings in further detail in the course, and hopefully along the way we will gain some insight that will help us to make more rewarding decisions as managers, consumers, and as people overall. Thank you. Yep, any questions?
Saving might be a better strategy in terms of those.
You said saving?
Yeah, saving costs may be better.
Oh, as far as? So I can say that some notable brands have had success incorporating experiential aspects into their offerings. I think two examples that come to mind are Harley Davidson and Jeep. Those are two brands where there's a sense of community, and I think Harley Davidson even has a sense of community among consumers. I think Harley Davidson actually has like events where people come together and have like conventions. Now that I think about that, I think about, well, I guess a comic book. So let's just keep it there. I think many brands have actually had success incorporating those experiential aspects, which may lead to those, higher levels of happiness than just the material possession itself. So, good question.
Have you seen anything about the differences in generations in terms of how much they value material over how much they value experiential?
I've heard notable people in the field who are familiar with this research, and this is relatively recent research for some people. One person just empirically, like this was not a rigorous study, but that person, which is a notable scholar, did say, yes, I have seen more interest in experiential purchases among younger scholars in the field. And I would say empirically, I can kind of get that sense based on my own experiences, which that's my own experiences. But yeah, I've heard ideas to that effect.
Types of experiences people are looking for, or like very, people specific things. Everyone looks for a different thing.
So you're saying, are there different strains of experiences that might mean more?
People tend to like a specific type of experience, or everyone tends to have its own thing?
I haven't seen anything to say either way. I know that, for example, one aspect that this research covers is the social benefit of experiences. So like one aspect of an experience is that it's more likely to be consumed with other people than a material purchase. Also, it's more rewarding to talk about after the fact, both for the speaker and for the listener. So people are more open to conversation about experiences than one's possessions, which kind of makes... Right. And I can see, for example, so to your question, I can see how that aspect, that social aspect of an experience could be more important to others. Like maybe the love and belonging aspect of that might be more important than the esteem. But whereas somebody who climbs Mount Everest by him or herself might be looking more for that esteem or even self-actualization more so than the love and belonging aspect. So there are different aspects. I haven't seen anything to say which aspects are important to which kinds of people.
But can you say something about, for example, can you separate if people are interested in bragging about what they experienced, or are they actually sharers?
So that was actually the kind of kernel that kind of started us down this road on this specific topic. I have seen a paper, and it wasn't even in the field. It was in, I think, tourism management, that said that social return, that concept of a social return, like I'm taking this trip because, yes, I want to take the trip, but also I'm really looking forward to posting about it on social media, for example, later, that kind of thing. There has been research on that, and that research itself did find a significant effect from that kind of bragging. Now, you can take that for what it will, but for what you will, but yes, there has been some research done on that. Yes.
Outcomes in different commodities. For example, if it's for the food, if I experience to take a taste of this food, and maybe I just need a taste of this food, and then I'm satisfied. So I have no actual purchase behavior related to my experience. But if it's for like the phone or some computers, if I buy that in Apple Store and I can experience that, maybe this experience could add more to my utility. There are like these differences between different commodities, different types of goods.
So what I hear is you're saying that around the time of purchase, and I see hand motions. Okay. So what you're kind of saying is around the time of purchase, perhaps like immediately before the person pays for whatever material possession they're trying to acquire, adding experiential dimensions at that point might raise that person's willingness to pay. Is that kind of the idea you're getting at, maybe?
Or if that experience has already fulfilled your goal of your satisfaction. Or dissatisfaction.
Okay. All right. I think that, but I do think you raise an important point about, like, for example, you talk about the Apple Store and how that in and of itself, while you may be purchasing a material possession, that experience might influence your value or your willingness to pay for those material possessions, that experience you have in the store. So I hear what you're saying, and we can talk about that after.
Or you're saying, like, I purchase caviar not because I have a need,
Yeah.
right,
Maybe
for food, but because I want the experience of having this unusual. Is that what you're getting at? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. All right.